Hello and welcome to the video. Today is going to be a guide on how to build the best possible loadout day one of the wipe in case you have been wiped. And I compiled basically all of my favorite items and potentially the best weapon you can unlock from the traders without completing any quests. In fact, you can see here, I haven't played a raid and I'm able to make this kit here. The reason I chose the AKS 74U is the fact that it's 545 by 39. And at level 1, you can actually get this US round from Prapor. And if you look here, 17 penetration is actually pretty decent for level 1 traders. And you get a minus 15 recoil buff. It's 65 damage, which is a little bit lower than PRS, which is the other option from Prapor. But I think when you put together the penetration and recoil benefit, it's actually the best choice. You can get your AKS from Prapor for about 24,000. And then what you're going to want to do is probably rip off the dust cover and buy your Pilgrim, which can be found from Skier level 1. And then put on whatever sight you like. Personally, I usually go with the MRS because it is an item from Skier, and I find that he is a trader I struggle with spending money at. So it's usually the one I go to. It also is just very clear. It's not a great sight, but you know, you have level 1 traders. What do you expect? So what you want to do is go ahead and pop this on and then put your sight on just like that. And the other thing you can do, but is not necessary, is replace the gas tube cover. You have the B11, which is available here from Skier level 1 as well. What you can do is put the RK6 on there, which is a Skier item, and then throw that on your AKS. Now, I would almost always go for a laser device before a flashlight, unless you're running night raids. And generally, if you're running night raids, you kind of know what you're doing already. So I would go ahead and suggest the laser for newbies to begin with. And the reason for that is that you can run around with less exposure to yourself with that tactical device turned on. So then you have your weapon here, and it's actually a pretty good little gun you can get day one of the wipe. And you know, this is the guide for players who might have gotten wiped. Of course, you start with all this gear. I started with USEC, so I have the NATO weapons, and there's some good options here to use. But these are for the players that get wiped. They lose all their stuff. They have some scav weapons, which I wouldn't suggest using. And then we can actually kit out the rest of your PMC. I would suggest using the tea bag, and the reason for it is that it's 9 slot, but the other part of it is that it's only 3 kilograms, as weight is very important at the beginning of the raid. Not beginning of the raid, but beginning of wipe. Then I would go with the TV 109. And the reason I suggest this one is it's not the cheapest, but it gives you a 4 slot. And because our backpack space is so limited at the beginning of wipe, that extra 4 slot is going to let you take out propanes and some other 4 square items that you might want. The P.A.K.A. is actually my favorite armor, and it has just to do with, I don't know, it's dark, it's level 2, it has pretty good coverage with the side coverage, so you're just going to want to use that. And then you basically only have one choice for helmet. You can choose the blueberry helmet off of Peacekeeper level 1, but I would not suggest that because it is gonna give yourself away so quickly. So then I always suggest taking at least 3 magazines because you're gonna have to have some ammo to fight people. You can do it like that. And then I go for the cats from Peacekeeper level 1. They're $55 each, but I think that it's a good way to spend money for him. I always suggest 3 because heavy bleeds happen quite often. And if you don't fix a heavy bleed, you're gonna die quickly. A normal bleed you can kind of get away with for a little while, but then here you see we have this sort of filled up, and then I like to hotkey my medications, something like that. Generally, I'm using an IFAK that I find in raid, and that will heal my health and a bandage. So if you have one of those from the raids, you don't need to take the normal bandages, but if you only have access to cheese, you're gonna have to take some of those in case you get a light bleed. And then generally speaking, this is not enough health to heal you, and you will get more bleeds. So I would at minimum take another one of these just to be covered. But really, realistically, it's better to have this. And you're going to use these throughout the raid because it's not that you won't get in gunfights. You're going to get into gunfights and fight people, so you're going to lose health, so you're going to end up using these meds. But these are sort of extras, so, you know, depending on how you feel, you might forego those or take one less heavy bleed. Just kind of depends what you want to do. You can also go ahead and hotkey these up here if you just want to have them on the go ready. But I always suggest 3 heavy bleeds. That's the most important part. And then at least if you have EOD, I don't know about the other game editions, you get some starter CMS splints and Vaseline. I would always keep these in your secure container. Again, if you have the normal edition, you're only going to have 4 slots, and those would be very valued. And I would actually suggest, if you are going to put some loot into your secure container, I would take out the splint first because you can buy normal splints. After that, I'd probably take out the CMS. And then lastly, I would take out my bulk sort of painkiller item. So then the other thing that you can do here is actually save your presets. So let's call this something like Wipe Day. But once you have your presets saved, once you lose the items, you can go into here, and if you don't have the options, it will pull up everything for you to buy, and that way you can get loaded into raid faster and continue getting through the quests and progressing your account. Another thing to add is, let's say you are struggling with wipe, it's not likely that you're going to have the cash for this kind of loadout. So I think it's important that we talk about which items I would start foregoing to save some money. I would probably say the gun, I would definitely start with the gas block there and just use the normal one. That's probably going to be good enough for that. I would really try and keep the scope on your weapon if possible, because it really helps you just making those shots. After that, I would start cutting down on the medications. From there, I'd drop some cheese, and I'd probably drop a couple bandages. And after I've dropped those, it depends on how many painkiller effects you have on your bulk painkiller, but these are actually quite expensive. I think they're like, yeah, they're like almost 9,000. So I'd probably drop the painkillers because you can usually pre-pain when you know you're getting into a gunfight or a risky area, and that way you're not risking as much. Next, I would probably cut down on the helmet. That's going to save you some nice cash. From here, it starts to get really hard where you're going to save some money. I'd probably drop one of the heavy bleeds at that point. After this, I would probably go for a cheaper rig, although you're not going to be able to save yourself that much money. Yeah, I mean, it's like 10,000 for 8 slots or 10,000 for 10 slots. Honestly, if you're at the point where you're going to be dropping like your rig, I'd probably just go no rig and do something like that. You just have to be careful, knowing that you can't really reload. When you're in raid, you're going to have to like unload, install, or like double click, control click to take it off, then drag and drop. And that can be very tricky to do in a gunfight. At this point, you're really pushing your budget. The next thing I would drop, and the reason I would drop the rig first, actually, before I talk about the other stuff, is because you can kill one scav and at least get a scav vest or something very easily. So this is very easily replaceable. At this point, I'm going to say I'm dropping my armor. And if I can't run at least something like this, it doesn't have to be the AKS 74U. I'd probably even then go to like a pistol. But if I can't run at least a gun, headset, and teabag because I'm so broke, it's time to do a scav raid or go play arena. I know there's ways to make arena money and experience. So you definitely have some options, and I wouldn't run less than a kit like this. And honestly, dropping the armor kind of sucks because then every scav is going to just injure you, and then you need more meds. So yeah, it's pretty important to at least have some body armor. But that way you can kind of conceptualize where to save some money. Helmets can go like immediately. This is not going to do all that much for you, but it costs like 20,000 rupees altogether. So just think about those things. That's my tip for your wipe day loadout. And I hope this video was helpful. If there's any other questions, just definitely leave a comment below and I will reply and give you the best advice I can. So have fun playing.